We'd come to this corner of Spain 3 years ago, chasing the kind of reinvention only Americans dream up in the dead of a Midwest winter. Sarah, my wife of 8 years, had sold her boutique law firm in Chicago for a fraction of what it was worth, convinced that the sun-soaked hills of Andalusia would heal the cracks in our marriage, the ones that had started widening after Charlie's dad bailed when she was 12. "Think of it as a fresh start," Sarah had said, her voice all polished determination as we packed up the life we'd built in the Windy City. I was the optimist then, the graphic designer who traded freelance gigs for painting watercolors of olive groves, believing love could bloom anywhere if you just watered it right. Our villa perched on the edge of a cliffside town called Ronda, that vertigo-inducing spot where the Guadalquivir River gouged a chasm through the earth like God's own scar. It was postcard perfect. Whitewashed walls draped in bougainvillea, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and sea salt, and distant church bells tolling like they were calling us to confession. But perfection's a liar. Underneath, the house creaked with unspoken resentments. Sarah's late nights buried in emails for her new remote consulting gig. My failed attempts at connecting with Charlie over bad paella and worse Spanish lessons. Charlie was 20 now, home from her gap year backpacking through Europe, her once gangly frame filled out into something fierce and unapologetic, with sun-bleached curls that tangled like her emotions. Sarah had left for Madrid 2 days earlier, some urgent client meeting that smelled like an excuse to breathe without us orbiting her. "I'll be back by the weekend," she'd promised, pecking my cheek with lips that felt like obligation. The rain started that first night, a biblical downpour that turned the dirt roads to mud and trapped us inside. Charlie and I had circled each other awkwardly, me brewing chamomile tea she wouldn't drink, her scrolling TikTok with the volume cranked, sound bites of pop stars crooning about heartbreak filling the silence. I wanted to bridge the gap, to be the stepmom who'd earned her place, but every overture landed like a stone in that Ronda gorge. "How's the trip planning going?" I'd ask and she'd mumble, "Fine," eyes glued to her screen. That second evening, as the storm raged, I found her in the kitchen, staring at the rain-lashed window like it held the answers to questions she hadn't voiced. The photo was on the counter, Charlie and Celeste, arms slung around each other at a summer festival in Seville, fairy lights blurring behind them like captured stars. Celeste was the wild one, a Spanish-American firecracker with raven hair and a laugh that could coax smiles from statues. They'd met in high school back in Chicago, bonded over shared playlists of Halsey and Fleetwood Mac, and when we moved, Celeste's family followed 6 months later, settling in Malaga for her dad's tech job. The girls were inseparable, video calling across the miles, then reuniting for weekends of cliff jumping and midnight confessions. "You miss her," I said, sliding a plate of manchego and figs her way. It wasn't a question. Charlie's shoulders tensed, then slumped. She picked at the cheese, her nails bitten to the quick, a habit she'd picked up after her parents' divorce. "More than miss her. It's complicated." Her voice was small, swallowed by the gale outside. I sat across from her, the wooden table between us feeling like a chasm. "Talk to me, kiddo. I'm not your mom, but I'm here." The words felt clumsy, American earnestness clashing with the old-world weight of the room. She laughed, bitter and brittle. "That's the problem. Mom's never here, not really. And you tried too hard." But there was no venom in it, just exhaustion. Then came the flood, the confession that hit like the storm itself. It poured out in fits and starts. The way Celeste's touch lingered too long during their hugs, how a shared glance at a crowded tapas bar in Malaga had ignited something terrifying and electric. "It wasn't just friendship, Jamie. Not for me. I kissed her last summer, under that stupid fig tree in her backyard, and it was like the world finally made sense. But she pulled away, said it was a mistake, that she'd tell everyone it was nothing." Charlie's hands twisted the photo, creasing Celeste's smile. Then she did worse. She told her church group, those Bible study types her parents drag her to. They cornered me at the next meetup, whispering about sin and salvation, like I was some kind of predator. My stomach knotted. Betrayal's sting I knew well, from Sarah's emotional affairs with work, from the step-parent jokes that cut deeper than intended. "Oh, Charlie, that's not on you." "Celeste." She panicked. "People do stupid things when they're scared." "But I loved her," Charlie choked out, tears carving paths down her cheeks. "And now? She's ghosting me, posting pics with that guy from uni like none of it happened. And Mom, God, if she knew, she'd ship me back to some conversion camp in the States. She still calls Dad's leaving God's way of teaching resilience. The rain eased to a patter, but the air in the kitchen grew thick, charged. I reached across the table, covering her hand with mine warm, steady, the way I'd imagined a real family might feel. Your mom's tough love comes from her own scars. But this is yours to own, not hide. You're brave as hell for saying it out loud. We talked until the candles guttered low, Charlie unspooling years of buried longing. The crushes mistaken for admiration, the nights scrolling lesbian romance threads on Reddit, the fear that Spain's old Catholic bones would crush her spirit. I shared my own fragments, coming out in the 90s, the queer bars in Wicker Park where I'd found Sarah. The quiet pride of building a life against the odds. By midnight, she was asleep on the couch, photo clutched to her chest, and I sat vigil, watching the storm clouds part to reveal a sliver of moon over the gorge. The next morning dawned brittle clear, the kind of Spanish sun that burned away illusions. Charlie woke with puffy eyes but a tentative smile, brewing coffee strong enough to strip paint. Thanks for last night, she said, handing me a mug. Feels less like a bomb in my chest now. We spent the day wandering Ronda's cobblestone streets, dodging tourists in fedoras and snapping pics at the Puente Nuevo Bridge, that engineering marvel spanning the abyss. For the first time, she leaned into the stepmom role, asking about my paintings, laughing at my mangled attempts at flamenco footwork in the town square. It was fragile, this thaw, but real. As we shared churros dusted with sugar at a cafe overlooking the Serrania, my phone buzzed. Sarah's flight delayed, another day of us two. That evening, as the sun dipped into the Atlantic, painting the sky in bruised purples, Charlie's phone lit up. Celeste. The message was a grenade. Hey, can we talk? In person. Tomorrow? Malaga. Charlie's face drained of color, hope and dread warring in her eyes. What if she wants to fix it? Or end it for good? I squeezed her shoulder. You go if you want. But remember, you're not the one who owes apologies. She nodded, but sleep evaded us both that night. I lay in the master bedroom, Sarah's side cold and empty, replaying Charlie's words. Love, the reckless kind, had always been my Achilles heel. Sarah and I had ignited in a whirlwind of poetry slams and pride parades. But time had sanded the edges, leaving us with routines and resentments. Was this confession a mirror, forcing me to confront my own silences? By dawn, decision made, Charlie was packing a overnight bag. I'll take the train. Back by evening. A quick hug, fierce and fleeting, and she was gone, the door clicking shut like a held breath. The villa felt cavernous without her. Echoes of laughter fading into the walls. I painted furiously that day. A swirl of cerulean and crimson, capturing the gorge's raw drop, the terror and thrill of freefall. Hours blurred until my phone rang. Charlie, voice hushed and urgent. Jamie, it's bad. Celeste. She told her parents everything. They're coming here. To Rhonda. To sort this out. My brush clattered to the floor. Betrayal's second act, sharper than the first. Stay put. I'm coming. But the line went dead, swallowed by static or signal or something darker. I grabbed keys, heart pounding, racing down the winding road to the station. The train to Malaga was a merciful blur of olive trees and sierras, my mind a storm of what-ifs. What if Sarah's plane landed early? What if this blew our family to smithereens? Malaga's port hummed with life, street performers strumming guitars, vendors hawking espadrilles, but I barely registered it, hailing a cab to Celeste's family's apartment in the old town. The driver chattered about the weather. I nodded mutely, pulse thundering. As we pulled up to the Ochre building, I spotted them. Charlie and Celeste on the balcony, heads bent close, voices rising in a crescendo that carried on the breeze. You had no right. Charlie was shouting, her curls whipping in the wind. Celeste's reply was a sob. I was scared, okay? My dad's talking exorcisms, mom's crying about grandkids. I didn't mean to hurt you. I climbed the stairs two at a time, bursting onto the balcony like a force of nature. Enough. My voice was steel, honed from years of boardroom negotiations back in the States. Two pairs of eyes snapped to me. Charlie's grateful, Celeste's wide with guilt. Jamie, Charlie started. But the door behind us flew open and there they were. Celeste's parents, faces thunderous, a priest in tow clutching a rosary like a weapon. "This ends now," Mr. Ruiz barked, his accent thick with righteous fury. "Our daughter is not some experiment for your American sins." The air crackled, the sea below mirroring the turmoil. Charlie shrank back, but I stepped forward, channeling every ounce of Midwestern grit. "With all due respect, Senor, love isn't a sin. It's the hardest damn thing we do." Words escalated. Accusations flying like shrapnel, the priest invoking scripture that twisted my gut. Celeste crumpled, tears streaming, while Charlie's hand found mine, a lifeline in the chaos. It was raw, ugly, the kind of confrontation that leaves scars but demands truth. In the end we fled, Charlie and I, tumbling into a cab back to the station, leaving Celeste to her family's storm. The ride was silent, her head on my shoulder, the weight of unspoken futures pressing down. As Rhonda's lights twinkled into view, my phone lit up again. "Sarah. Landing soon. Miss you." The confession had cracked us open, but the real unraveling? That was just beginning. Sarah's return was a whirlwind of exhaustion and forced cheer, her carry-on thumping against the villa's door like an uninvited guest. "Traffic from the airport was a nightmare," she groaned, dropping her bag and pulling me into a hug that smelled of airplane coffee and Chanel No. 5. Her dark hair was pinned in a hasty chignon, lines of fatigue etching her forehead. Lines I'd once traced with kisses, now avoided in the dim light of our unspoken drifts. Charlie hovered in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, her Malaga adventure etched in the shadows under her eyes. "Hey, Mom." The greeting was neutral, a tightrope walk over the gorge of her secret. Sarah pecked her cheek, oblivious. "Missed you, Bean. What's for dinner?"
"I'm starving."
Bean, her old nickname, from when Charlie was a chubby toddler waddling after fireflies in Grant Park. It landed like a relic, sweet but stale. I busied myself with reheating last night's gazpacho. The blenders were drowning my pulse. How to bridge this? The confession hung between us like humidity before a storm, thick and inevitable. Over plates of grilled sardines and patatas bravas on the terrace, conversation skimmed surfaces. Sarah's disastrous client pitch, the latest scandal in Madrid's political circus, Charlie's vague nod to hanging with friends. I caught her eye across the table, a silent plea, "Your move," but she shoveled food, gaze fixed on the horizon where the moon silvered the waves. That night, as Sarah snored softly beside me, I slipped into the guest room where Charlie had retreated. She was curled under the duvet, phone glowing with unread texts from Celeste. "Can't sleep," I whispered, perching on the bed's edge. She shook her head, curls spilling like ink. "It's like swallowing glass. One wrong word, and it all shatters." I rubbed her back in slow circles, the gesture maternal yet laced with the queer solidarity we'd forged in Malaga. "We'll tell her together. Tomorrow over coffee. She's stronger than you think." But morning brought its own betrayals. Sarah was up early, scrolling emails on the couch, her face a mask of distraction. Charlie and I exchanged glances over breakfast, avocado toast and fresh squeezed orange juice, the Spanish ritual we'd adopted to feel less like exiles. "Mom," Charlie started, voice steady as rebar, "there's something I need to say." Sarah looked up, brow furrowing. "Everything okay? You seem off." Deep breath. "I'm gay. Have been for a while. And Celeste. It's her. Or was." The words landed like the rain from 2 nights prior, sudden, soaking. Sarah's mug clattered to the side table, coffee sloshing over the rim. Her mouth opened, closed, a fish gasping in the dry Andalusian air. "What?" "No. Charlie, honey, this is a phase. Remember that crush on the soccer captain in high school? Same thing." Charlie's laugh was hollow. "That was pretend, Mom. To fit in. This is real. I told Jamie already. She gets it." Sarah's eyes flicked to me, betrayal sharpening them like flint. "You knew? And you didn't say anything?" Her voice rose, accusatory, the lawyer in her surfacing, cross-examining the one person who'd vowed in sickness and health. "I was waiting for the right moment," I said, palms up in surrender. "This isn't about sides, Sarah. It's about supporting her." The terrace fell silent save for the distant cry of gulls, the world narrowing to this triangle of hurt. Sarah stood abruptly, chair scraping like nails on chalkboard. "I need air." She stormed inside, door slamming with finality. Charlie buried her face in her hands. "Told you." She'll never. Give her time, I urged, though doubt gnawed at me. Sarah's conservatism had always simmered beneath her progressive facade. Bible verses bookending her emails, quiet judgments on the lifestyle choices of colleagues. Coming out in the 90s had been her rebellion, but motherhood? That had calcified her fears. The day fractured into fault lines. Sarah holed up in the study, phone pressed to her ear and hushed calls to her sister back in Chicago. Charlie vanished to the garden, weeding the herb patch with furious tugs that uprooted more than basil. I mediated, flitting between them like a hummingbird on caffeine. Brewing Sarah's Earl Grey, slipping Charlie a playlist of Brandi Carlile tracks. By afternoon, the tension boiled over in the kitchen, where Sarah cornered me by the sink. "How could you keep this from me?" she hissed, arms crossed like a barricade. "We're partners, Jamie." Or were. The word echoed a premonition. "Sarah, this isn't about us. Charlie's terrified because of how you might react. Remember what you said after Pride last year? It's fine for them, but not my kid." Her face crumpled, defenses cracking. I want her safe. The world's not kind to girls like that. Not here, not anywhere." She sank onto a stool, head in hands, a rare vulnerability, the woman who'd once argued a landmark discrimination case now adrift in her own. I knelt before her, taking her hands, callous from years of gripping briefcases, now trembling. "She's not like that. She's our daughter. And love? It doesn't come with a safety net. But we can be hers." We talked then, really talked for the first time in months. Sarah unspooled her own ghosts. A closeted aunt lost to AIDS in the 80s, the church youth group that shunned her for holding a girl's hand at prom. "I thought moving here would protect us," she admitted, voice raw. "Away from the judgmental eyes. But I'm the one who's blind." Dusk found us on the terrace, the three of us tentative as fawns, Sarah pulling Charlie into a hug that started stiff but softened, tears mingling on sundresses.
"I'm sorry," Sarah whispered.
"For not seeing you. For making you hide." Charlie nodded, mute, the photo of her and Celeste now tucked away like a talisman. But peace is fleeting in drama's grip. That night, as cicadas chorused, Sarah's phone buzzed with a forwarded email, from Celeste's mother no less. "We need to discuss this family to family. Tomorrow at the Parador. Bring the girls." Betrayal's third strike, colder than the others. Sarah's face paled. They must have gotten our number from the old school directory. Charlie overheard, freezing in the doorway. "No. I can't face them again." The room tilted, old wounds reopening. I stepped in, voice firm. "We go as a united front. Or not at all." Sarah nodded, resolve hardening. "Not at all." But Celeste had other plans. She showed up at dawn, pounding on the door like a supplicant, rain from an unexpected shower soaking her through. "Please," she begged when we opened it, eyes red-rimmed, defiance warring with desperation. "My parents are losing it. They want to send me to a therapist in Seville. Reparative therapy. I can't. I won't." Charlie's resolve cracked at the sight of her, drenched, vulnerable, the girl who'd once been her anchor now adrift. "You outed me," she accused, but her voice wavered. "I know. I'm poison." Celeste's shoulders shook. "But I love you, Charlie. Always have. I was just too chicken shit to say it." The confession ricocheted, mirroring Charlie's own from days before. Sarah and I exchanged glances, parents thrust into the role of reluctant cupids. "Come inside," I said finally, handing her a towel. "Dry off. Then we talk." The morning stretched into a confessional of sorts, the four of us around the kitchen table, steam rising from mugs of hot chocolate like peace offerings. Celeste spilled it all. The pressure of her devout family, the guilt that had festered into that cruel outing, the nights replaying their kiss under the fig tree. I thought if I denied it loud enough it'd go away. But it just got louder. Charlie listened, hurt and hope dueling in her hazel gaze. Sarah, to her credit, stayed silent. No sermons, just quiet nods. When Celeste finished, voice hoarse, Sarah cleared her throat. "Love's not a battlefield, but it feels like one sometimes. We get that here." She glanced at me, a flicker of our old spark. "What matters is what you do next." The decision came swift. Celeste would stay with us until her parents cooled, or until we could mediate. Calls were made, diplomatic but firm. Sarah channeling her lawyer chops to remind the Ruizes of Spanish anti-discrimination laws, the EU protections that Spain had embraced post-Franco. "This isn't 1950s Andalusia," she said, voice steady. "Your daughter's not property." Pushback came hard. Voicemails laced with scripture and threats of cutting ties. But we held the line, the villa transforming into a makeshift sanctuary. Days blurred into a rhythm of tentative healing. Charlie and Celeste tiptoeing around each other, rebuilding with walks along the cliff paths, hands brushing like accidental sparks. Sarah and I rediscovered our own language, late-night talks on the terrace, her head on my lap as stars wheeled overhead, apologies woven into the fabric of second chances. Yet conflict loomed, a shadow over our fragile idyll. One evening as the sun bled into the sea, Celeste's father arrived unannounced, his Mercedes kicking up gravel like gunfire. He stormed the terrace, face purple with rage, clutching a manila folder like evidence in a trial. "You've poisoned my home," he bellowed at Sarah and me, eyes wild, turning our girls into abominations. Charlie and Celeste huddled behind us, but Sarah stepped forward unflinching. "Mr. Ruiz, sit. Or leave. But threats? They're not welcome here." He thrust the folder at her, printouts of studies on conversion therapy, yellowed pamphlets from fringe groups, the kind of hate dressed as science that curdled my stomach. "This is help. Real help." The air crackled, climax cresting like a rogue wave. Charlie found her voice then, stepping out with a fire I'd only glimpsed in Malaga. "No, Dad, that's poison. I love Celeste. And if you can't love me back, then go." The words hung a gauntlet thrown. Ruiz's bluster faltered, eyes darting to his daughter, pleading broken. Celeste met his gaze, chin lifted.
"I'm staying.
Until you remember I'm your kid, not your project." He left in a squeal of tires, the folder abandoned on the tiles like shed skin. Silence followed, profound and purging. We collapsed into chairs, adrenaline ebbing into exhaustion. But in that void, connection bloomed, hugs that lingered, laughter bubbling through tears. That night, as rain pattered once more, Charlie and Celeste slipped away to the garden, their silhouettes entwined under the olive tree weed planted on our first anniversary. Sarah and I watched from the window, her hand in mine. "We did good," she murmured. "Yeah," I replied, throat tight. "But it's not over." The weeks that followed were a delicate dance on the gorge's edge, high-wire acts of emotion where one misstep could plunge us all. Celeste's parents' silence was a weapon sharper than shouts. No calls, no visits, just the echo of that slammed car door reverberating through our days. Charlie wore the worry like a second skin, checking her phone with the furtiveness of a spy, while Celeste masked hers with forced brightness, helping in the kitchen, her laughter a touch too loud as she chopped onions for tortilla española. Sarah threw herself into advocacy, her laptop glowing late into the night with research on LGBTQ+ resources in Spain. "Did you know there's a helpline in Malaga? And Pride events in Marbella next month?" She'd say over dinner, facts like lifelines. It was her way of atoning, of weaving the threads of her past conservatism into a tapestry of allyship. Our marriage too found footing again, small gestures like her leaving notes in my sketchbook, "You're my favorite plot twist," or the way she'd pull me close during siesta, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces long misplaced. For the girls, romance unfurled in stolen moments. A shared blanket during movie nights, when Harry met Sally, ironic and apt, fingers interlacing under the table at beachside picnics in Nerja. It was tender, the kind of love that whispers rather than roars. Charlie tracing Celeste's palm lines by candlelight, Celeste braiding wildflowers into Charlie's curls. No grand gestures, just the quiet profundity of two souls recognizing their mirror. But betrayal's aftershocks lingered, a low rumble under the surface. It came to a head one sweltering afternoon, the kind where the Sirocco wind carries Saharan heat and tempers fray like old rope. We'd planned a group outing to the Alhambra in Granada, a day trip to lose ourselves in Moorish arches and whispered histories, but Celeste's phone shattered the peace en route, a voicemail from her mother, voice quavering with feigned concern. "Mija, we're worried. Come home. Your father's changed. We've found a specialist." Celeste deleted it mid-playback, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "They're bluffing. Have to be." Charlie's hand on her knee said otherwise. By the time we reached the fortress's honeyed walls, tension coiled tight. We wandered the General Life gardens, fountains tinkling like fragile truces, but Celeste grew distant, eyes scanning shadows for phantoms. Sarah tried levity. Look at these peacocks, they're queerer than we are. Earning a ghost of a smile, but the pall clung. The climax erupted in the Nasrid palaces, amid courtyards of filigreed stone where echoes amplified every word. Celeste's phone rang again, her father this time on speaker by accident, his voice booming. Enough games. We're filing for custody intervention. You think those American in-laws can shield you? This is Spain. Family law favors blood. The group froze, tourists parting like the Red Sea around our drama. Celeste's face drained to ash. Custody? I'm 21, Papa. You can't. We can and we will. For your soul. Click. Silence vast as the Sierra Nevada. Charlie lunged for her, but Celeste recoiled, panic-etching lines too old for her face. This is my fault. I dragged you all into this mess. She bolted, weaving through the Alcazaba's labyrinth until she collapsed against a myrtle hedge, sobs racking her frame. We found her there. A huddle of solidarity amid the Alhambra's timeless grace. Sarah knelt first, voice gentle as Granada's breeze. Hey kiddo. Fault's a lie we tell ourselves. This? It's theirs. Charlie joined, wrapping arms around Celeste. We fight it together. Papers, lawyers, whatever. You're not alone. I hung back, heart aching with the universality of it, the way love invites war, how families fracture on altars of fear. But in that garden, under jasmine vines heavy with bloom, something shifted. Celeste looked up, eyes fierce through tears. What if? What if I go back? Just to talk. End this standoff. The proposal hung, a gamble. Sarah and I exchanged loaded glances, risk versus rupture. Only if we go with you, I said finally. No solo mischens. The drive back to Ronda was somber, the Sierras blurring into monolithic sentinels. That evening, over a subdued dinner of fidua on the terrace, we plotted. Sarah drafting a response email, citing Andalusian family codes and the 2021 trans youth protections as precedents. Charlie and Celeste clung to each other, their bond a quiet rebellion. Kisses chaste as whispers, but profound in their persistence. The meeting was set for the next day at a neutral cafe in Malaga, the kind with wrought iron tables and views of the Alcazaba's ruins. We arrived early, nerves jangling like the bells of the cathedral nearby. The Ruizes swept in like a storm front, Mr. Ruiz stern in a crisp guayabera, Mrs. Ruiz clutching her purse like a shield, eyes puffy from private wars. Seating was a chessboard. Families flanking the girls, waiters hovering with wary politeness. Coffee arrived, black and bitter as the mood. We're here for Celeste, Sarah opened, voice measured. Not to dictate, but to understand. Mr. Ruiz snorted. Understand? You've corrupted her. Filled her head with Hollywood nonsense. Girls kissing girls like it's normal. Charlie bristled. It's my life too, senor. And it's real. The volley began. Accusations of Western decadence, pleas laced with scripture, Sarah countering with stats on suicide rates among queer youth, the 40% who'd faced family rejection. I watched Celeste, her hand inching toward Charlie's under the table. A microcosm of courage. Then the pivot. Mrs. Ruiz, voice soft as silk tearing. I was like you once, she confessed, eyes on Celeste. In the 70s, university in Madrid. A roommate. We shared more than books. Gasps rippled, Sarah's subtle, Ruiz's a choke.
Isho silence.
Married your father. But the what-ifs, they never leave. The cafe hushed, even the barista pausing mid-grind. Ruiz deflated, hand reaching for his wife's. Elena, why didn't you? Shame, she said simply. But seeing our daughter fight for what I buried? It's a gift. A chance to be better. Tears flowed freely then. Barriers crumbling like the ancient walls outside. Hugs followed, awkward, profound, the Ruizes enveloping Celeste, then tentatively Charlie. We'll try, Mr. Ruiz muttered, pride warring with surrender. Counseling. Real kind. Not the poison ones. Relief washed over us like the Mediterranean at high tide. But humanism's true measure isn't tidy bows. As we parted, Ruiz pulled me aside. Thank you. For standing in the gap. American grit meeting Spanish stoicism. A bridge across oceans. Back at the villa, celebration was subdued. A bottle of Ribera del Duero uncorked, toasts to fractured families mending crooked. Charlie and Celeste danced barefoot on the terrace to an old Indigo Girls track, their laughter a melody we'd feared lost. Sarah drew me aside, moonlight gilding her features. "We almost lost it all," she whispered, lips brushing mine. "But look what we gained." The months unspooled like a well-worn reel. Celeste's parents attending PFLG meetings in Malaga, virtual ones grudgingly. Charlie starting a blog on expat queer life. Sarah and I renewing vows in a quiet civil ceremony at Rhonda's town hall, witnessed by the girls, bougainvillea confetti raining down. Betrayals scarred, but they taught us resilience, the kind forged in confession's fire. 1 year on, as another storm brewed over the gorge, Charlie handed me a new photo. Her and Celeste at a pride rally in Barcelona, rainbow flags whipping like promises kept. "You started this," she said, hugging me fierce, "by listening." I glanced at Sarah, dozing on the couch with a legal pad abandoned, our anchor flawed and fierce. The family we'd built wasn't perfect, no Hallmark gloss. It was American dream stubborn, Spanish soul deep. A testament that love, in all its dramatic, heartbreaking glory, changes everything. And sometimes against the odds it saves us. In the end, the rain fell gentle, washing clean the slate for whatever came next.